Foundation Course Kabbalah, Part 2, Lesson 40, Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. A few lessons ago, I had said that men should get children, women do not have to have children. It is not mandatory for the laws of the universe to have children, but men do. But you should not understand this physically, that men should get children. If the Torah says, if the laws of the universe dictates us that men must make children and women do not, it means something entirely different than we think. Of course, the Jewish people understand this literally, and they make children as much as they can, but it is not so. Male souls, it's about that male souls who must give. Giving means getting children. Male soul must have children, and it means to always must give. Also, here on earth, a man does not have to make children physically if he really does not want to. It may be that it is whispered to him from above that he does not have to have children in this reincarnation, which is no disgrace. You must understand that we are always talking about the laws of the universe and not something physical. Have always an eye for that. Every nation has a particular talent that is given from above. One nation can do this and another can produce other things for humanity. So too this is given in the spiritual and the laws of the universe. It is not replaceable by a language other than Hebrew. So learn at least the Hebrew letters, the structure of the words in its crude form. It is given to you to pass on. You cannot escape it. When it is given to you, if it's your job, then you cannot escape it, neither to the left nor to the right. This is a unique opportunity to penetrate the whole structure. That's what we will do. Miracles will happen to us by Zohar. Zohar is light. We have said there is light of Chokhmah, the light of wisdom, and the light of Hasidim, light of mercy, and specific mixture of the two. Some. Not only mixture, particular state in which the true reality is generated, and experiencing the true reality, such a light is called Zohar, sparkle. We will call it by reading the texts, step by step. There's no other book in which man in this period, even my Jewish brethren have here in the Netherlands and Belgium, never talked about it. They aren't interested in it. And above all, is given the instruction, you do not have to be Jew. Everything is inside. You do not have to be intelligent, quite the contrary. Your intellectual talents can stand in your way. If you misuse it, they can be obstacles for your feet. It's very difficult to make a man out of a smart guy. That's misery. If you want to understand, push, never. That will not work. You cannot enter the spiritual without you coming on your knees inside. Absolutely impossible. If we learn Zohar, try not to understand intellectually. There's nothing to understand intellectually. Very special. You must have a special mindset to learn. Your great love must be the truth. Seek the truth and nothing else, and kneel before the truth. There is life. We talked about Atzilut and also the birth of the worlds, which was higher than its current condition, until the Parsa light is allowed to enter, and under it we saw Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. That is the state of now. Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah are under the dividing line of what we call the Parsa. Besides, the Parsa is the point of the future world. We expect the future world as a place. It must be somewhere else. That's what we expect. We will do our best to live in the future world. Future world means that you pass the Parsa, which is the point of the future world. And here with us, when we pass between the material and the spiritual, which is the point of our world, and we can experiencing of the spiritual, that's basically what we call machson, the barrier. But when we come to the Parsa, to experiencing Asiyah, Yetzirah, and Bria, then we come to the point of what is called the point of the future world. The future world is a matter of perception of yourself and not a place like the religious man thinks. Who thinks there is a place somewhere? We will also learn in the Zohar of hell. We will learn what it all is, because therefrom were all those imaginations, which of course are also used in different religions. But we'll see what all this is. Qua forces. It's nothing but forces. Hell and all that other stuff. But when we come to the Parsa, we arrive at the point of the future world. That's handy, that we all do this in our lifetime. That we will experience that. That's what counts. The last time we draw the birth of Adam, who was born higher and then has fallen by the fall down into our world. Later we will come back to this. Then I drew the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We understand that the tree of life not just lies somewhere, but it is in my perception. When I corrected myself, then I can experience it. A human can come inwardly in the perception of the tree of life. Everything is up to you and not to another. The forces from above only want to help you. We would like to be helped from above, and help on our side, the higher. That is what matters, and not that fate decides something. Fate determines nothing. Fate only determines your life if you're still living your life with hands and feet, with your heart in our world. Only that, and you're not concerned with the spiritual, the eternal. Then you are indeed subject to all the forces of constellations, etc., which make of you. Who will control you instead of you piercing all the constellations? That you're the boss, that you will not let. Of course, they affect us, but you must pierce. And only when we are dealing with when we rise up above the point of our world in our perception, then we experience, of course, the forces of the stars acting on us, but we are no longer victims thereof. We therefore do not have to conform to them, to the law that they impose on us. Thus we arrive at freedom. The whole point of what we learn is to get the absolute achievable in us. That is what we are doing, and nothing else, and not the teaching of this or that. Also the tree of good and evil, we will talk about that later. We will understand what it all is. We will begin to feel what it is. We are all going to feel the whole structure of the world. What has been drawn for this lesson? We now see something different. Always important to know is what the ultimate goal is. Then I know whether it is worthwhile to work or not. Therefore it is given to us too. I'd like to show now the entire Kabbalah, what the instruction of the Creator is. Then we will see everything is important, but the end goal is the most important. I met once a Jehovah's Witness who told this and that, and it was hard to avoid that person because they would like you to hear it. He says to me, there comes a time at the end, there comes a time when end of time there is misery, etc., all distress. Therefore I want to show you what the Creator intended. His final plan, not a plan of any sect whatsoever, that we understand what the plan is, and how we ourselves are partakers of this plan, what we can contribute to it and what not. That, at the end, comes the misery. What's that? Everything is in the hands of man, absolutely. We said above was the world of Adam Kadmon, above the Tabur, the first world, which has no effect on us. It is such a high dimension that we do not even a single radiation enters us. We cannot talk about that because that is speculation. You should never do that. Under the Tabur there begins the world Atzilut, because Atzilut is the world of correction. This is actually our subject of study. Also Zohar begins with Atzilut. That's Atzilut where Atik and Arichanpin, Abba Ve'ima, Ze'ah and Malchut. This is the world Atzilut. And below, Bria, Yetzirah and Asiyah. The whole Zohar is about it. The whole system of correction is from mid-Avi and down. That's what we do. That's where influence comes upon us, from which light is coming on us. For example, we cannot understand the upper Avi, absolutely impossible. Avi, Abba Ve'ima, the upper part, we cannot comprehend, let alone higher, Arichanpin and Atik. Actually, there is nothing coming from that to us. We do not need to keep busy with them. A little bit we do to see, to make a connection with Ein Sof and us. That's why we do not talk about these things. It's so thin, there's absolutely nothing to talk about. It's even forbidden to talk about it here. What does prohibited mean? Otherwise, you just say words, You just say words, and that is forbidden to say things that you do not experience. Even if you do not experience, you speak words about Kabbalah, but not here. Here it is all thin. And therefore, the first atik still belongs to the upper world. Only the connecting link forms a connecting link, and only from that, AA, Arichampin, and Avi, Abavayima, and Ze'ah, Ze'erampin, and Malchut. These three, there's all correction coming from to us. We're all going to study. We are going to study. Look, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah is little to study about. Why? All of the worlds are, as it were, prints from each other, only it is less power. Down is less force, but it's all the same. Structurally, it is all the same. Here in Bria, you again have the Atik, Arichampin, Avi, all the same structures. Therefore, we need not keep ourselves much busy with that. We will deal with the Atzilut, little bit Arichampin, Abavayima, and here all corrections come from. We're all going to study later. You will see how amazing the mechanism is what is given to us. But we cannot go further than that. We experience none of Atik. From Atzilut we experience also nothing. It is not coming for us. It is so high nothing comes towards us, but it's all necessary for the whole structure of the worlds. But we experience nothing of it. You'll understand what it all is. For this lesson, it is useful to keep accompanying the drawing with you. This is drawing number 40 in the written material, a situation after the creation of the worlds and Adam after his fall. And this drawing shows clearly all the aspects of the 6,000 years and the final corrections and 8,000 and 9,000 and 10,000 years. Please refer to the written materials. In the drawing, we see the state of now. First, the worlds were higher. With the emergence of these worlds, they were higher than now, but that will come later. After the fall of Adam, also fell down the worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. What does worlds fell down mean? That is the outer side of which man is put in. The inner forces that are outside with respect to the human, who also fell down. We leave it because otherwise it becomes philosophizing. When Adam was created, we'll see what it all is. Then the worlds went with him. For example, as Adam did something good, then the outward side of him, the worlds also went up. But after his fall, they stay up. We will all see what it is. The whole construction is always valid. When man rises up, he remains fixed. The standard, the structure of the world's always in place. Only we raise ourselves higher. If I, for example, I'm in Bria, and now I will exalt myself to Ze'ah Malchut of Atzilut, then I raise myself to speak higher. But then I come to stand in another higher place. At a place. I was in Bria, now I have lifted Bria to Ze'ah and Malchut. I contributed so that the worlds came higher, and me along with it. But Bria always remains in her place. We always speak from a fixed state as it is now, which is the fixed structure of the world. And at the bottom is our world, with man in our world. But also, if the man of our world, meaning that the man only experiences our world, so everything material that is here, but suppose the man in our world already experiences Asiyah, and that's so I sit here, and another is in Yetzirah, and another is in Bria. And when we speak prayer in the right way, we can, in every prayer while we are here, we can elevate to Ze'ah, Ze'erampin, and Malchut of Atzilut, to the world of correction, and even to Avi, Abba Ve'ima. But we do not have the strength anymore. But there were people, very great souls, who could even come to Avi while they were still with hands and feet here on earth. But the souls, actually all of our souls, which stem from the four worlds, That is the world of Atzilut. And below it, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, the four worlds. These four worlds we keep ourselves busy with. There we move ourselves in, but there are souls here on earth, or were here, or ever will be. They all came from these four worlds, and that's why it is so. Suppose your root, the roots come from Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria. Suppose your root is of Asiya. Then you should not strive for Yetzirah. Your job is to complete your Asiya. It's your root, nothing wrong. You just need to follow your root and fully correct yourself, and then you are, for example, in Asiya, and then you correct Asiya fully because all the worlds are connected. In Asiya, what is Asiya? What is in Asiya? All four worlds are in Asiya, only of the level Asiya. You understand? In Asiya is Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya of Asiya. You will taste on each level something of Atzilut. In Asiya is also Atzilut, only at the level of Asiya. You experience everything that another experiences only at the level of Asiya, which is very important. There are also souls who come from Yetzirah, and souls coming from Bria, and much less souls coming from Ze'ah and Malchut. Exceptional souls, for example, very great prophets like Moses and others, and in exceptional cases of Atik, which is a soul which comes from the final correction. And why is it so? All that is in the world must also be in the man. The world, everything is created to elevate man. There are also souls who are in Atik, very high souls, absolutely. Few, because everything is in the shape of a pyramid. Does not matter. Is he higher than the other? His goal, it's his goal. And if a human being is very high on the scale, on the spiritual level, and he makes himself receptive, that you make yourself small from inside because you really want to, let's say, do things that will please the Creator, and therefore you make yourself receptive. Then the soul can, for example, on earth, all souls have been here on earth, then, for example, the soul of Zeir Anpin, Ze'ah, and Malchut can visit you, and as it were, come to live in you, just as long as you are still doing well. But suppose that you're going to behave yourself badly, then it will leave you, and therefore someone who really learns Kabbalah is very careful with everything, because in you get to live certain souls, and you're very careful with that. Just as there are important guests who would come and stay with you. Suppose someone comes who is still higher than the Queen of Queens. Suppose you win a lottery ticket and the Queen comes. How will you receive her? The higher, the more it is for anyone who strives for the ultimate. The more it is that a soul comes from above, which will help you. You deserve in one way or another that higher soul comes to visit you, and that can live in you, and that helps you in your corrections. You need to be careful with that, because he can always leave. Why? It is not imposed. It is voluntary. You understand? You're suddenly here somewhere, you're receptive, you do good things, and then suddenly a soul comes from you, because all souls have been here on earth. Some not yet been, but most have been here. Also of Atik. So all souls have been, and nothing disappears in the spiritual. Just as rain coming from above, never comes rain from bottom to top. So it is with the spiritual. Always comes as a great righteous one. The name is a little old-fashioned. Is no other word. A tzaddik, for example, who comes into our world, and he has done many good things. It will remain, as it were, of all mankind. But we do not see it. Of course, but if someone here on earth then corrects himself, then can a soul who has ever been somewhere, and does not matter where, which will penetrate in him, in that man, because for a soul flesh is nothing, which comes just in you and will help you in all your corrections, and not that we think that there is a light from somewhere. Everything is in there. We only do not see it. Our eyes cannot see. Similarly, there are also around us heaps of spirits, all kinds of spirits. The Talmud tells us when our eyes could see a higher dimension, we would immediately drop dead of fear of what surrounds us. Because who are the makers of the witches and ghosts. We produce them by our misperceptions, by everything. We do not see it. If you look at those movies, you will make that. You are going to experience it. Star Wars, you produce all the ghosts around you, and they will control you. It's very special. What soul of a righteous man can penetrate you if you're surrounded by those heroes of Harry Potter, for example, or Star Wars, etc.? There's no force that can come in. You're surrounded. You have made yourself an armor of those images, and who can help you then? Only if you come to stand on your knees from inside that you want to see the true reality, and not those Hollywood characters. The people we do not know, they also experience the spiritual. Always so. Americans are so caught up in matter that the road to the true reality is minimal. They also get out absolutely. After all the nations, they will come last. They were the first in the matter, and they will be the last in the spiritual. 1. That is the state of now. The situation of now is that, as we see from the tabur to what we call parsa, to that which we call point in the future world. So from that parsa to the point of the future world is the world of Atzilut, is the world of correction. All blessing, everything comes from there, and the world is there absolutely spiritual. All the roots of us, all the light of life comes from there. Whether we deal with Kabbalah or not, and under it are the worlds, Bria. Bria means, what is Bria? Those are spiritual forces, a set of spiritual forces, let's say a sort of hierarchy of powers, where let's say 90% is good and 10% is bad, as it were. Not bad, but we put it this way towards each other. Yetzirah is 50-50, as it experiences in terms of forces. Asiya is 90% evil and 10% good. And our world is just gambling. Absolute for itself is, of course, 100% good, but because we have seen some breaking of kilim, we still have to make corrections within the 6,000 years, and some things we need to bring up. Let's say here, Zeir Anpin and Malchut must still be something added to, and then we can say that in regards to itself is 100% in respect to us. It is nearly 100%. In terms of roots, is 100% good. Comes only the good from it. There, of course, are all sorts or all roots of evil, but roots of evil is not bad. We will learn that it is intended in order to correct yourself when you should reach your own root, any particular evil that you have come to the root of that evil, and that is already correction. You understand? The root of evil, some evil that is in you, that's already correction, because in the root of evil is no evil. It's just root, and in a root is no evil. So the Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, which in the current state, so under the Parsa, what is under the Parsa? That means that under the Parsa means a line, a dividing line between, say, holiness, divinity, absolute divinity, and here is already evil, more or less evil. And here there is no light of Chokhmah, light of wisdom. It does not come in pure form under the Parsa. Under the Parsa comes only, let's say, Or Hasidim, light of grace. Light of Hasidim. That's what comes here. Only comes light of Hasidim, and that is the light of Bina. It is giving, but it is a weak light. When we come in Bria, there is light, but weak with respect to Atzilut. Atzilut is perfection, and that's what still needs to happen. What is the correction man needs to make? The idea is that the creation, the world, is created for 6,000 years. 6,000 years means, in the first instance, of course, 6,000 years of corrections. 6,000 corrections, phases. It does not always correspond to calendar years, but we'll see that it has some correspondence. What is expected of man, and not just humans? What creatures, kinds of creatures we have? We have from top to bottom lifeless nature, stars, celestial bodies, also lifeless. Then the vegetative nature, the plants, and then the animal nature, and then man. 4, as the 4 letters of the name of the Creator, Avaya. Again, we see the 4. Man contains within itself all 4. The man has all. We have nails, lifeless. We have plants in ourselves. Hair is just like a plant. Everything we have in ourselves, teeth. We have all nature in ourselves, but only man is instructed and also has inherited the powers within himself to correct himself, and in the measure the man corrects himself, rises. To the same extent, all other natures elevate themselves. We always talk about the man, the others just going along. 6,000 years corrections means 6,000 phases of corrections. The first stage is with regard to the correction. We have said above Parsa is all. The light may come in, light of wisdom, Chokhmah, not at the bottom. Where does the shortage begin? Under the Parsa. Everything under the Parsa must now be corrected, which we must now bring up in 6,000 years to Absolute. So those Briya, Yetzirah, Asiya, first man must of course come into the spiritual, which is coupled together. Asiya, Yetzirah, Briya, which must be raised in 6,000 years to Absolute, thus correct themselves. Here is already pictured the first 1,000 years. Each world is 2,000 years. Briya is 2,000 years, Yetzirah is 2,000 years, and Asiya is 2,000 years. And therefore, for 2,000 years man has lived without Torah. Torah was given in 2224 after the creation of the worlds, and it is now about 5,779 in the Jewish calendar, 2,000 years, 5,765 in the Jewish calendar, 2,000 years was no need for Torah. From the creation of man, we'll see that the creation of man was no need for Torah. They were so close to the Creator that they just had. If they did a misstep, they could simply say, Master of the world, I've done something wrong, and then immediately there was the power of correction. It was enough. In him was correction, notwithstanding the fact that Adam sinned. It was simple because they were close to the light. Then was given the Torah after 2,000 years. That means with the entrance of Yetzirah, for souls were already a lot more selfish. They could not say, Father, I have sinned, could not anymore. They must have the Torah, and the Bible had to be given as Moses received it, and they had to then. Moses had to take his lambs upstairs to the temple, were slain and have regrets, whole processes. But also that was enough for them to get reconciliation. And that was 2,000 years of Torah, and the Jewish people are still there. And now is the time of the third, and now we're in correcting Asiyah. The third 2,000 years means 2,000 years of the coming of the Mashiach. So we're in the period, the last period before the coming of the Mashiach. This is written in Torah in the Zohar. It's not something I say, what comes from other religions. Other religions have only taken from Jews. Whether they understand, it does not matter. And now is the 9 of the eve of Mashiach. Now is the time of the eve of Mashiach. This is like the eve of coming of the Mashiach, actually. The Torah in our time is simple. They do this so the Jewish people, it is also necessary to mature spiritually, but they want still with hands and feet. Also good. It's not yet mature mind, but basically in our time is the Torah as it was given, is no more. Always binding, but man must no longer do that with hands and feet as they did, because inwardly the intention. So, those are the 6,000 years of correction. What is then the correction? We see it here. Look, here is the Parsa. In the first 2,000 years of the correction, Briya comes above that Parsa, over the tip of the future world. Future world is the world of perfection, and Briya has risen after 2,000 years. When the first 2,000 years have elapsed, also Yetzirah comes from above the water, and the third 2,000 years also Asiya comes above the water. That is the entire correction, in which the first stage of the correction, let's say 6,000 years of the correction, to the final correction, which is called Gamar Tikkun. When all those worlds will pull up and remain above the Parsa, above the point of the future world, at that time all souls will be corrected. And then the Mashiach will come at that time, the power of the Mashiach. What is the power of the Mashiach? We will learn that it is the light of Keter. And that has such a powerful force that then, what is then? Step by step. We have said, after 6,000 years, all worlds, what means world, within it the man, because the worlds are external parts of the human being, of the creation, and in it is man. You should always know world, and therein is always the man. in his experience. So the man is sitting here, of course, physical man will always remain here. That we do not think we're going to take off somewhere, like going up within an air balloon. The idea is that we, the Shekhinah, the divine presence that is brought here on earth, and not that we get it up. The whole art is that we get it down. Remember that well. And not that we become angels. That's nothing. There are plenty of angels. So man will remain here on earth, but his experience, his perception, in terms of forces, he will be connected to the spiritual worlds, and he will get the future world, which means he will experience the future world. That's the first phase, which is up to the coming of the Mashiach. And then comes the strength of the Mashiach here, after 6,000 years. And this phase we can achieve, the man personally. Let's say before the year 6,000, if the whole world had passed, the individual can achieve that himself. What does it mean? Others are still working. It's like running a marathon. One is already back, already drinking a beer, and the other puffs somewhere, has yet to come to the finish. Some people, such as Yehuda Ashlag, who reached during their lifetime Gmar Tikkun, which eventually the whole humanity must reach after 6,000 years, their souls help us, as it were, and wait until all of us, all of humanity, will be ready, and then shall the power of the Mashiach come. The strength, the light, Keter, and after that comes 1,000 years of Shabbat, means rest, and that's the 7,000 years, just as the 6 days and the 7th day is Shabbat. No traditional but qua forces. So too will come 1,000 years of Shabbat. Christians have also written this down. Also is taken of Zohar, of course, but the 1,000 years of Shabbat will be the 1,000 years. What will be the 1,000 years of Shabbat? Here I can tell you, we learn with you only up to here. The flavors of Torah, that is the Kabbalah, which we may tell this far. What continues after the 6,000 years, but what it looks like, impossible to tell. Firstly, I'm not there yet because I do not have my Gmar Tikkun. And on the other hand, the man who reaches Gmar Tikkun personally reaches final correction. He can tell no one how it feels there. You understand? How it feels after those 6,000 years. Why? Because no earthly dimension longer applies there. There is our language. Any language cannot be sufficient to depict that, express how it feels there. You cannot express it, and therefore it cannot be told. So everything after the 6,000 years may not. Secrets of Torah, which from those 6,000 years, you will not find a word that has been written in any book. It is not allowed, firstly, and only the large, very large Kabbalist just can say a word of mouth to his best pupil if he is worth it. And the 6,000 years, we can tell you. That you can find in the books. The Zohar describes only that. There are, of course, more allusions to it, but we will only go this far, that is allowed. It is even that it may, the people do not reach it. The Zohar describes only the piece of Atzilut, and sometimes higher, but mostly it's about halfway Avi and down, which is Zohar. Only Zohar helps us. What does it mean? Zohar helps us to reach Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, to enter these levels of Asiyah, Yetzirah and Bria, and help us bring them to Atzilut. For the Zohar always speaks from Atzilut. If we learn Zohar, we will experience Atzilut. Step by step, we will experience it. We will be powered from the world, Atzilut. It will be billions of times higher than what I've told so far. I will not speak, but the Zohar will speak. The entire purpose of the correction is that we come up. Everything we do now is that we come to Atzilut with all our strength. Come to Atzilut. And when you get from Atzilut, always comes an opposing. As you go up, you always automatically come down. Brought the good. It is not one-way traffic, always two-way. So if you strive to go up, light comes from above to bottom. In extent that you do upwards, to the same extent it is radiated downward. What achieves man when he accomplishes his own personal correction? Of course, he then fulfilled the whole Torah. Absolutely. What does fulfill the Torah mean? If someone learns Torah at the level of the ordinary story, Moses went there with sweaty feet, etc. And Abraham went there, and just simple, then he experiences Asiyah. Then the Torah is for him of the world Asiyah. 90% of Jewish people are busy with the Torah on that level of Asiyah. If someone learns Torah, for example, laws and little allegorical narratives, he then experiences Yetzirah, but all allowed, not allowed, clean, not clean, etc. Why? For his Torah is of Yetzirah, and Yetzirah is 50-50. And that means that something is not pure, and if someone comes in Bria, which means that he learns Talmud, but not higher. Therefore, all my people is under the future world, and they think the future world is a place somewhere while it's all up to them, because they want to learn Kabbalah. Kabbalah means Torah of the level of Atzilut. And he reads Kabbalah of Atzilut. That does not mean that you are there already. But if you come in Atzilut, the great Kabbalists, it is not valid for them unclean, clean. Of course, he knows what is unclean and clean, you understand. His Torah comprehension is purity such that he can be done no more harm by that unclean or clean. And if a man comes to experiencing the lower side of Avi, Abba V'Ima, it is said about him that he is the Son of God. That is a Jewish concept, absolutely Jewish concept. Why didn't Jews understand that? They do not learn the Kabbalah. Therefore, if anyone is in the Torah of Bria, Yetzer Asiyah, when you talk to him about God, the Son of God, or sons of God, of course, for him it is ridiculous, because he is in the Torah of our world, from the lower Torah with hands and feet. You also need to do, but that's all they do. If someone has made the 6,000 years corrections, it indicates that he has fulfilled the whole Torah. All that is written in the Torah, he has already completed. That's 6,000 years. Yet there is still something not corrected. We always talk about wonderful things, but there remains always something. Why? There are certain needs that are still dead, that cannot be corrected until the coming of the Mashiach. The power, the light of Keter, the light that penetrates everything, because under are always. Where there is a compartment with the impure forces, and we correct that, we correct what we can, but after that, there is still something left. There remains something from those impure forces that we still cannot correct. That's how it is. It does not matter. As long as man corrects himself as it should, then he is perfection until the coming of the Mashiach. Then hovers here and under something from forces where it's just like, it does not feel anymore, as it were, that it can seduce you. No more. But whatever you do with it, it'll no longer seduce you or bring you to sin. But it's like dust of the earth. It is no more. There's no holiness. There's no spark of light in it anymore. Whatever you do with it, it does not anymore pull the forces of you downward. Therewith man can correct himself. Everything we do with you, all of our efforts, is the 6,000 years of correction. That we will all learn. How should we correct ourselves, etc. Also worked out technically, will we all learn. Therefore, it's a whole process. A course Kabbalah cannot be done in 10 lessons. What you do in 10 lessons, it's your life goal. Kabbalah, life purpose, always from higher to higher. Higher at higher you come. You cannot stop anywhere. Even as a great Kabbalist, very great Kabbalists who come all the way to their own personal fulfillment in our world, if they are still alive, body, then they have nothing to do. Can you imagine that? That you are living in our world as a very great Kabbalist, because they arrive at absolute correction. Who is completely corrected? It is a problem. There were very great ones who then began to pray to the Creator that he would bring sickness or anything else, because then they could ask for something. You understand? You should ask for something. You should ask the Creator. If you lack, then you should ask for something, and then you should express your prayer. But if someone is perfect, there hangs something underneath, which is normal. But he's already perfect and he remains alive. Then he might give more specific. Everyone is different. Then the Creator gives a different purpose, say extra purpose to that person, that he still does something, or maybe it's already above our 6,000 years and we cannot talk about it. That's the 6,000 years, and remains something of what we call a heart of stone, which still remains in some form, some 32 wishes that we cannot correct. We will all learn, and then the 7,000 years begins, which can nowhere be learned, because even if a man comes to his perfection, experiences what is going on, he cannot tell anybody what it is. It is absolutely impossible to tell, even about if a Kabbalist is located here, already feels absolute. I also cannot give a lecture to the ordinary man of the street. I have no contact with them. I can obviously talk, but just to tell them, absolutely impossible. What most people do is talk about spiritual things, but that is not the spiritual. No one experiences something all ostentation. I'm not saying it's wrong, absolutely not. It is well intentioned. How can anyone speak of what he experiences? Just a little bit of absolute is much more powerful than all the pleasure that humanity has, and will have until the coming of the Mashiach. The smallest step here, or even to experience the smallest step of Asiya, cannot be compared with anything else on earth. With all the wealth of all the other pleasures what man has, I cannot even compare it with the last experience here, let alone the Kabbalist who has been experiencing over the 6,000 years. What I'm saying is broadly to understand the 7,000 years of Shabbat means certain reconstruction, certain rest, like a Jew on Shabbat does nothing. Everything comes. Everything he has done a week before, 6 days before has done. Everything will come, and he's not playing the boss over himself. That little correction should come here, but he leaves it up to the higher. So too here now in the 7,000 years. All that we have accomplished in the 6,000 years will be placed in the appropriate boxes, and the boxes are no longer such an angular structure, but it is all flowing. On top, it is flowing through all that corrections committed by mankind, but always after humanity comes, because all the soul that is here in his own correction, which he has accomplished, can also see something there, of course. But he is still afflicted with the stone heart, with the correction that hangs with him still down there, which have not been corrected. He can see, but death remains. The 7,000 years is peace, absolute peace, humanity. What it all is, we do not talk about, and then comes 3,000 years. Now look carefully, very careful, watch what will happen next. First 6,000 years of correction, what was that? These worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, which were below the Parsa. Be careful, try to take in what I'm about to say. It will give you radiation of what was, is, and will be. If you can pick that up, the whole problem is that we cannot take it in because we think it is somewhere else while it's here on earth. What I have drawn here, if you take it in, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, those we have, which humanity corrects in these 6,000 years. Why? Because letting it all pass up the Parsa to Atzilut, then a kind of perfection is achieved. But where? Not on its own place. Everything is up. Look, everything is brought up. All those empty places, which is the full correction. The perfection will be achieved, but at the top, in the Atzilut. And now, after 6,000 years plus 1,000 years of correction, all goes back down. Everything is already corrected, and everything has been made flowing through the 1,000 years of Shabbat. Came to rest, to resignation, to the true state, and now everything comes down. The Atzilut goes down, Atzilut as it were, which the power of Atzilut is going down again. The point of the future world will lower slowly to the point of our world, and will flow together with it. The point of the future world comes here on earth. The 8,000 years which comes first Asiyah, because everything comes up, so to speak, when first comes the Bria, and when it goes down. First comes the Asiyah. So first comes the Asiyah in the 8,000 years, but the Asiyah is already. And actually here ends then. The Atzilut, which is then lowered, the Parsa, the separation between the divine and the profane, is already dropped, one step down. Then 9,000 years, Yetzirah comes downwards. It will be taken away, and here comes the end of Atzilut, and then the 10,000 years. And there remains something of impure forces, and the 10,000 years is that all three come down, and the Parsa ceases to exist. Then the separation between the spiritual and the earthly is gone, and here actually comes the point of future world, then coincides with the point of our world. So the absolute comes over there. Where are the impure forces? They cease to exist. At that time it is written, death will cease to exist. That is the plan of the Creator. When the Mashiach comes, there are certain things that should happen. Then the forces are working down. Takes time. Do not think that when the Mashiach comes directly, everything is ready. In our world, everything what is in our world takes time. Here also, when the Mashiach comes, the forces go out. How can it all go down? Through the power of Mashiach. Of course, but it still takes a certain correction. The death you cannot just abolish at once. That death ceases to exist. Here comes some battles, certain forces that we do not talk about because we do not know how it all goes. But everything goes down. The absolute, which then drops down. So perfection descends and eventually comes to the point of our world, and that's about what is written in the Torah, that the Mashiach's feet will come stand on the Mount of Olives. That's the point. The feet of the Mashiach. The feet of the Mashiach, where are they normally? They always stand where absolute stand, where absolute ends. Those are the Mashiach's feet. Feet means his head, the power of the spiritual. The higher is obviously higher. Absolute up to there, but the feet are up to Asiyah. Feet means the entire height of the spiritual. Therefore, feet, as we say feet, we do not talk about our feet and hands. When we say feet, it means where it ends the spiritual, the sacred, the light, where darkness begins. Normally the feet are here at the Parsah, but in the 8,000 years will those feet, as it were, go down. One time drop down, and then the 9,000 year, it drops again downwards, and then everything will be in its place. Because the intention is that the light comes not that the light is only received above, but the holiness, the light comes down here. Because in the beginning we saw, at the beginning of creation came a line of light from Ein Sof to almost, dropped to our point of the world, and then came all sorts of limitations from the side of creation. First, the light could only come to here, to the Tabur. And then we saw the light came to the Parsah, and from now it was up to the Parsah, and then after 6,000 years, after 2,000 years, Bria go 3 worlds up first, Bria, then Bria plus Yetzirah, and then Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. Everything is corrected, everything, the light of Atzilut is in Atzilut. But it is not in its own place. Also on Shabbat, a Jew who lives up to Shabbat really lives up to Shabbat, and not only eats and enjoys and sleeps a lot, but who really knows what is Shabbat. Because Shabbat resembles Atzilut, only it is minimal. It's only one time a week. It is absolutely amazing what the Creator has given what the Creator has given to these people. No one nation has had it, and that is why. Why not giving it to other nations? Because these people must absolutely be sacred to comply to all and pull along all those nations with themselves. Every nation has its own particular purpose. All kaleidoscopes of forces is needed, but these people must have Shabbat once every week. It is written, if all Jews consecutively would celebrate Shabbat, the entire nation, the Mashiach would come. We cannot understand how it all is, but it's true. If all Jews consist of 6,000 forces, primeval souls, who pull everything down and pull upwards. If all the Jews would do really keeping Shabbat, then the Mashiach would come. The power would come in such a way. I have no words for it. You know what I mean. Every Shabbat, every Jew experiences exactly the same. Only it's obviously not your merit. On Shabbat is coming. You will experience light from above, where you will be drawn to Atzilut on Shabbat. I can't be compared to anything. With no pleasure in our world, the experience of Shabbat. If you do it right, experiencing Shabbat means that everything that is under here, you feel no pulling from below. All your kilim will be brought up. There's nothing like it. What our people do with Shabbat, they do like everyone else. We have a democracy. We drive a car, we do this, we do that, We are modern, all excuses of our ego. But it is absolutely important, primarily for the Jews themselves, and in the second instance, because the Jews do not live only for themselves, absolutely not. When a Jew keeps Shabbat, this means that also in his surroundings, including non-Jews, will experience, even if they do not understand how it comes, because at that time the Jew draws that kind of forces from the power of the Mashiach, but only a little bit of the Mashiach, as it were. The spark of Mashiach, and in these 6,000 years, every Shabbat we get, as it were, sparks up, and they again will go up later. We understand it a little. And there is then abolished the death, the 10,000 year. It is important that you look at the drawing, play with it in terms of forces, that you look at the forces, and that you always, for yourself, keep in mind that the ultimate goal is death will cease to exist. And that is the plan of the Creator. And not all of what they tell, there will be misery. Is this, is that? I don't know. Look at every religion, all miserable things. Why? It's not that they absolutely not, but they cannot see that. To see that what we are talking about is we speak from higher. Even if we are not there yet, we already speak from higher. Absolute. No religion reaches absolute. It does not matter which religion you have. Stay where you are is simply outward effect. What do you have then? You should not say, I want to become a Jew. What does he do? He then goes learning the outerly. If you say, I want to become a Jew, I want to learn from Absolute, Torah of Absolute, and I want absolutely, you have so much prayer, you want it, and nobody can dissuade you of this, can keep you away from it. Every Jew, a rabbi conducts a policy of discouragement. They always say you should not do it. It's not like at the time of proselytizing, the Jews never did that. Never have the Jews the urge to convert others, because it is always, everyone understands that it's a huge responsibility to be a Jew, because if there is punishment to come, who is the first? The Jew. But who also collects the first blessing? Also the same Jew. It's like a favorite son. Dearest son means will not be appeased, also means that if one does well, then he sits on my shoulders, but when he does badly, also gets the first hit. That is being chosen, is a huge responsibility the Jew takes upon himself. But basically, the Torah speaks not of a Jew and non-Jews. Here we'll talk about it, but when we learn Kabbalah, we speak of Absolute. We absolutely do not talk about these things. You see, we are not talking about Jew or non-Jew. For all that is man above is Jew, and down are the forces which are called peoples of the world. Torah always speaks about that. Torah never speaks about Jews and non-Jews. You should always remember where we are talking about. The Torah always speaks of things. With Zohar we learn about Israel. I have my root as a Jew. You have a root as a Christian. Does not matter. This or that. Christian is not really a root, is a superstructure. But you have your root. Wonderful. But work toward the goal. Work toward Absolute. Bring your Asiyah, Yetzirah, Bria to Absolute from your root. I bring it from my root. That's what it's about. And not nationalities. Kabbalah is above religious, above transnational, above transreligious. Remember that. When asked, what is your faith? Faith is all here in our world. Jewish faith, that faith. Jews have received the laws of the universe. Remember that. Everyone. To follow for yourself and make known to others that, and here on earth also, live absolutely divine here on earth, means comply with all the laws. Also to comply with all the laws of the land. Strict. You cannot evade taxes. Not a penny. You must be an example for all peoples. Everyone needs to learn from Jew what it is to be the chosen from the only creative force. That is Jew. And of course, there are very few of us left, but, as it is written, these people will rise from absolute fulfillment, fall, and with other nations come to the absolute fulfillment, because every day brings us closer to accomplishing this goal absolutely. Regardless what happens on a day, everything regardless of what happens in the world, but we will learn that in Zohar. In Zohar we will learn the world's operating system, where you will obtain the apparatus with which you will know exactly what the Creator wants from us, what is love for the Creator, where it is, where love is, what we call awe, etc. How are we to love the Creator? Everything we learn in Zohar in a very fine, subtle way. Asking questions is understandable because you are still in our world. But if you're going to learn the Zohar, your questions will get another dimension. If you start to feel absolute, then these questions disappear, the doubts disappear. Of course, other things come that you then do not comprehend. It is very fast what we will do if we start with Zohar. Only you have to participate. I cannot do it for you. If we do it together, we can go much faster, definitely. It should not be such that the one pulls to the right and the other to the left, which means we are like a pot, as it were. When we ask from above and then we receive optimal from above, if we are sitting here and are all aimed, plus attract all our desire as a magnet. But when there is a minus and yet another minus, that is noticeable. I am the teacher, and above is the Creator. Then I do feel there is a minus here somewhere. I'm going to use my energy to level it, as it were. It is understandable, but why? Why try to ask questions when you are alone and look for those answers? And when you're here in the classroom, try to participate. Always participate. Let your questions rest. And then when we're all together facing that one goal, we get a huge light. It's about the light, about experience, and not so much for the questions. Questions you should do at home, but here you should try to adopt the right attitude. Questions should be constructive for yourself. You must ask yourself, how can I do it better? Do not ask questions so you can understand it with your head. Everybody has inner sense that you have to use. If you're going to ask questions from the inner mind, these are questions for the higher forces and not for me. If you ask another question, you do that from your earthly understanding. That is the goal I want to achieve with you, that you ask from your inner mind. You must have the attitude to give pleasure to the only creative power. And what is the only creative power? That is Absolute. Of this we receive life. And the Ze'ah, Ze'er Anpin, and Malchut in Absolute, that is the Creator. If you want to give pleasure, it means that you, qua qualities, want to bring yourself in line with Absolute. Then you will receive light. But if you want to understand it intellectually, impossible. You experience nothing if you remain in your mind, as you must make yourself small, make yourself receptive. It is so important that we hear, at this place within Europe, there is a group of people in Amsterdam who will learn the true Zohar with absolute devotion and the tree of life of Ari. This will definitely have a huge impact also on the Jewish people. That does not learn and for the non-Jews. It will benefit, absolutely. There is no greater effect than raised here from the higher when we start working on the Zohar and the tree of life.